Hey guys, welcome to the Story Nest, where every story hides a shadow, and every shadow tells the truth. If you love dark, twisted tales that chill your spine, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss a story. They say the soul doesn't always leave the body cleanly. And perhaps that's what happened to Aiden on that rainy October night when his car careened off the road and into a tree just outside a forgotten town. Because though his body was rushed into surgery in some hospital far away, his soul found itself wandering the quiet streets of a place he didn't recognize, unseen by the people around him, unable to touch or speak or scream, just drift, like smoke in the wind, confused and untethered. The town felt old, frozen in time, like a photograph curled at the edges, its shops weathered, its windows dusty, the sky forever overcast in a way that made the day feel like permanent dusk. And though people passed him, they never looked at him until he saw her. She stood outside an antique shop with a flickering sign, her gray eyes fixed directly on him, as if she'd been waiting. She introduced herself as Iris, and unlike anyone else, she could see him, speak with him, even touch him gently like he was real. And she invited him inside, where candlelight flickered over shelves of forgotten things, clocks, books, porcelain, dolls, all humming with some quiet memory. And Aiden, desperate for meaning, followed. As the days passed, they talked for hours in the attic, where dust danced in the beams of light and Iris painted scenes from her mind, always sad, always familiar, always him. And Aiden realized she had lived in the town long before his accident, long before he'd ever existed, but she never aged, never left, and though she laughed and smiled, there was an unspoken grief in her gaze. When he asked her why she could see him, she only said, "Because I remember you." And when he asked if he was dead, she said, "Not quite," and that was all. Strange things happened then. Mirrors didn't show him, birds didn't fly near him, yet Iris clung to him like he was the only thing real, and slowly, painfully, he fell for her quiet voice, the way she hummed as she painted, the way she always knew what he needed before he asked. But the more he loved her, the more restless he became, haunted by memories he didn't think were his. Standing with her on a train platform in another century, holding her hand as bombs fell in a war, whispering her name as he drowned in a shipwreck. And Iris would cry when he remembered, but never explain why. Until one night, he found a basement below the shop, a place she'd hidden from him, filled with old photographs and news clippings of himself, in different eras, different clothes, always dying young, always with her nearby. And at the center of it all was a mirror, cracked and glowing faintly. Iris appeared then, not surprised, and told him the truth. They were bound across time, two souls meeting in every life but never surviving it, cursed to find and lose one another over and over. And this place, this town, was a fracture in the world, a limbo where echoes of souls could linger. He wasn't dead, but close enough to slip through, and she, Iris, had once lived here in the early 1900s before vanishing mysteriously, now kept in the fold of time, neither alive nor gone, waiting for him in every life. Aiden, overwhelmed, refused to believe it, thinking it a dream, a trick of death. But deep inside, he knew it was true, and worse, that his time there was ending. His body was healing, calling him back, and the more he loved Iris, the less stable the connection became. They spent their final days in the attic, holding hands as the world blurred, painting each other's faces so they wouldn't forget, promising they would find a way, this time, to break the cycle. And on the last night, as the town began to fade and even Iris's voice started to echo like memory, she whispered, "When you wake, don't forget me. Remember me, and I'll find you again." And then he was gone, snapping awake in a hospital bed, doctors shocked, family crying, machines beeping, and the world too bright, too real. But all he felt was emptiness. He told no one what he'd seen, but he never stopped searching through books, old towns, newspaper archives, anything that might hold a clue to Iris. Years passed, and though he became a successful artist known for painting a woman with gray eyes in every piece, he remained alone, haunted by the feeling that she was near but unreachable. Until one day, in an auction house upstate, he came across a box of old belongings from a closed-down antique shop. Inside, a music box that played the tune Iris used to hum, and a mirror that didn't show his face unless he whispered her name. It was then he knew this wasn't the end, only another beginning. And so, after all those years, Aiden did not chase wealth or fame or even love again in the traditional sense, because how could he? after tasting something so timeless, so painfully eternal, that anything else felt like pretending. He spent the next few years quietly, far from cities and noise, living in a cottage near the edge of a forest where no internet signal reached, keeping to himself, writing down everything he remembered not only from the town or from Iris, but from the strange flashes that still came in dreams, himself, as a 17th century sailor carving her name into a piece of driftwood, a turn-of-the-century clockmaker repairing a timepiece for her dying father, a World War I nurse holding his bleeding hand as bombs fell nearby. Every life, every version of them, repeated with subtle changes but always ending the same: death, departure, distance. Yet now, there was something different, something unfinished, like a skipped heartbeat in the rhythm of fate, and Aiden became convinced that perhaps, finally, the loop had cracked, that perhaps remembering her while living might keep the door open just wide enough to find her again, but not in spirit, and not in death. He began restoring old antiques, mostly mirrors and music boxes, drawn to objects that seemed tethered to memory, and over time, he noticed things: books turning to the right page when he thought of her, old clocks ticking faster when he whispered her name, and once, just once, the faint scent of her lavender oil drifting through the room, though no such bottle existed nearby. And while the world moved on around him, Aiden lived like a man, halfway in and halfway out, never fully here but no longer fully gone either, until one late autumn afternoon, when he was visiting an estate auction in a nearby village, he stumbled upon an old phonograph buried under broken picture frames and silverware, and when he cranked it out of habit and dropped the needle, the voice that played sent him to his knees. Iris, speaking gently, the same lullaby she once hummed in the attic, recorded and hidden for no one but him. The seller claimed it had come from an abandoned house that no longer existed on any registry, and Aiden purchased it without hesitation, bringing it home and playing the record every night, like a prayer. That winter, he began carving a replica of the old antique shop from memory: every shelf, every creak of the stair, even the exact position of the dusty books and the bent window hinge. And once it was finished, he placed it on his mantel and waited, not knowing for what, just feeling, intuitively, that the story wasn't done. Weeks passed, then months, and one evening in March, during the soft blue hour just before night swallows the sky, he saw movement in the reflection of the silver mirror he'd found all those years ago, the mirror that never showed him properly, never truly responded until now. This time, a figure stood behind him in the glass, gray eyes glimmering, charcoal-stained fingers reaching out, and though he turned instantly, no one was there except for a note on his desk in familiar handwriting: "The door is still open. You just have to step through." From that moment, Aiden stopped fearing the gap between life and death, because it was no longer a wall, it was a veil, thin and shimmering, and all he had to do was remember the right moment, the right emotion, and walk toward it. Days later, his neighbor reported his house door swinging open and the lights flickering for hours before going dark, but Aiden was gone. No sign of struggle, no body, no note, only the mirror, fogged with breath, and a second pair of fingerprints beside his own. Some think he died alone, lost to madness, but those who truly know the story, the whole story, believe otherwise, and say that in the space between what's real and what's remembered, in that forgotten town lost to time, the antique shop flickers into existence on certain nights, its windows glowing with candlelight, and through them, two figures can be seen dancing in the attic: a man who chose love over logic, and a woman who waited lifetimes for him to stay. And so, I tell you now, not because I expect you to believe me, but because some stories, even the impossible ones, demand to be told. And maybe, just maybe, if you've ever felt a presence when no one's there, or dreamed of a face you've never met but miss with all your soul, then perhaps your story is waiting to, like Aiden's was on the other side of the glass, where love never forgets, and the dead aren't always gone, and those who are meant to find each other always do. Thanks for watching the story Nest. If this one gave you chills, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more twisted tales that'll keep you up at night. Until next time, stay curious, and stay careful.